Joining me now is psychologist Claire Rowe. A lot has been said recently, Claire, about banning social media for children under 16. I've shared my thoughts on the issue. I'm not a fan of this agenda for a number of reasons, and one of them is surely this generation, Generation Alpha, have more immediate issues than just social media, being on TikTok, Instagram and all that entails. And one of those things is hardcore pornography, which young children are being exposed to from a very young age. We know from research in the UK, the average age of children accessing this hardcore porn is 12 years old. There's a lot of them that access it earlier. What is the impact on children from accessing this sort of material at such a young age?
Yeah, thanks, Rita. And I think one of the major problems here is that, as you said, it's younger and younger. I mean, I think there's a lot of kids who are exposed to pornography way before 12 years old. I think, 10 years old has been put forward as an average in a lot of countries. So, it's not about hiding the Playboy magazine under the bed anymore. And as you can imagine, all devices are internet enabled. So at the click of fingertips, children can access this. And I think this goes really to the heart, if we're going to have that discussion on social media in general, it really is the internet. It's not social media. It's about the world being brought into our children's bedrooms. And, for you and I growing up, if we'd asked our parents something, they would have said, well, I'll tell you when you're older. These days, a child will look back at you and say, oh, that's okay, I'll Google it, or I'll Google image it. And you think, oh, my goodness, So parents are forced into conversations earlier and earlier. And, as has been said in recent times, we underprotect our children in the real world, but we overprotect them in the real world, I should say, but we underprotect them online. And it's about the entirety of, the world being brought into their bedrooms. And I think for people who don't really understand the impact of pornography, it's very clear that research that it's not just linking behaviours towards risky sexual behaviours, which it does. It actually has really clear links in aggression, violence, poor academic results, poor socialisation, poor friendships, and definitely very poor mental health. So it's far more, wide-reaching than just saying that if you watch pornography, you're going to be kind of sexually promiscuous. It's the damages are far more than that. And for the young children stumbling across this material, as you can imagine, I mean, it's very aggressive, violent material, some of it. It's very confronting and traumatising. You can imagine for an 8-year-old who stumbled onto some of those sites.
Oh, absolutely. It has a powerful impact, often a very powerfully negative impact on young adults. So you can only imagine young children who really don't comprehend precisely what it is they're seeing. Now, I want to ask you about the federal budget, expanded mental health funding that was applauded by many, but there's very little extra money being put towards the care for the most severely mentally ill people in Australia, those, for example, who are suffering from severe schizophrenia. The Albanese government was very heavily criticised by former chair of the Mental Health Australia board, Matt Berryman, who said the PM had refused to meet during his first 2 years in office. We are spending a great deal of money on mental health, Claire, but is the money not going where it's most desperately needed?
Well, I think mental health is the only sector where the more money we spend, the worse it gets. If we were going to put this amount of money into something like cancer research, we'd want to be looking at some results that, cancer was coming down or there was some type of less, diagnoses were coming down. But mental health seems to be the only area where not only do we pile more money into it, but the rates of mental health diagnoses keep going up. And then the circular argument is, well, we need more funding. So one of the issues I have is that The government has said they're going to commit to something like $580 million to come up with some type of online platform where Aussies can call up for some telehealth, some very low intensity, it calls it. We're not talking about clinical depression. We're talking about catching people early. Now, it sounds lovely. It's all well and good, and there's a lot of research that shows the benefit of early intervention, obviously. But we do already have that. There's millions of dollars poured into things like the Black Dog Institute, Headspace, mental health education through schools. There is a lot of money there, and it's good spent money. I'm worried that if you actually are more up the severe end, and you may be having, I've had clients with suicidal tendencies, with people with severe psychiatric illnesses, there are very few places for them to go to unless they're willing to fork out for the private system. The number of hospital beds I'm concerned about more in mental health wards. And I get that we can't just be reactionary and we can't just spend money there, but I do feel like, nearly $600 million to create some very vague, no details at the moment, platform where you're going to call up because you're not feeling that great that day and you're going to get some kind of free counselling. Yet I've got pretty, severe clients in bad states where they need more than my support in the private sector can offer. And I call around trying to get some inpatient support through a hospital system and it's not available. And I'm worried about that end of the spectrum.
Well, you're working at the coalface, Claire Rowe. Thank you so much for your insights tonight. I do appreciate it.